launched, and I just want to welcome and thank everyone again on behalf of the SUNY Delhi Alumni Association for being here this morning. My name's Lucinda Bryden, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's webinar moderator, Dr. David Brower. David is the Dean of our School of Business and Hospitality Management, and he's also a fellow Delhi alum. David earned his Bachelor of Business Administration from SUNY Delhi in 2000. He went on to get his master's degree at Johnson & Wales University in Business and Hospitality Management, and then earned his PhD degree at Capella University in Organizational Management. I can tell you that SUNY Delhi has been very privileged to have David serve on our college faculty for the past 18 years. He's a great asset to our campus community, and I'm positive that many of you will remember him. We're delighted to have an equally impressive panel with us this morning. And at this time, I'd like to turn the session over to Dr. Brower to introduce our panel. Thank you and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Lucinda, and welcome to all of you. I would just like to underscore what Lucinda mentioned about our distinguished panel of guests that you're going to hear from in just a moment. But I also wanted to say how thrilled I was to see all of these familiar names in the chat as we got started today. So without further ado, because I realize that an hour goes very, very quickly, I'd like to have our panelists introduce themselves and just share a little bit with you about their career and when they graduated from SUNY Delhi. So I think let's start with Len Mitchell. Len, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Thank you, David. Good morning. My name is Len Mitchell. I'm the executive chef at the Thousand Islands Harbor Hotel in Clayton, New York, working for Hart Hotels Incorporated. We own around a dozen properties. I'm thrilled with the preparation that I received as a class of 1981 Delhi graduate, and very pleased to be here today to participate, to give back.
Thank you so much, Len. Kaycee, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kaycee Darby. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing at Mirbeau Inn and Spa in Rhinebeck. We are a fairly new property. We opened in October of 2019. Tough year to be open, especially during all of this. Just a bit of a background on Mirbeau. We have 3 properties. So we have one in Skaneateles, New York, up in the Finger Lakes, and we have one in Plymouth, Massachusetts, and we are the third. We're a full restaurant, resort, and spa resort, as well as we have 50 rooms. And I graduated in 2012.
Very good. Welcome, Kaycee. Thank you. Jim.
Good morning, everybody. Jim McPartlin, class of 82. I am currently Vice President Leadership Development for Forbes Travel Guide. I came out of the hotel industry. If you read my bio, kind of all over the place as far as living. And I also have a private consulting practice, which is coming to my aid quite a bit these days at helping teams navigate self-insight process and stress and all sorts of stuff. And very happy to be here.
Thank you, Jim. We're fortunate to have you on the panel today. Good to see you again.
You too, David.
Last but not least, Subhash Modasra.
Hello, my name is Subhash Modasra. Everybody lovingly calls me Subi. I'm class of 2013, and I'm the Vice President of the Mohawk Companies. We are a full development and management company here in the capital region of New York. We've opened our first property at the tail end of 2018 in Schenectady, New York, and I am actively managing there. I had some years at a DMO, Convention and Visitors Bureau, then with third-party Expedia down in New York, and happy to be on the call today.
Very good. Well, welcome again to each and every one of you, and we're super glad to have all of our panelists. And as you can see, they really bridge the gamut of opportunities that are available in the hospitality industry. So I think they're going to lend a varied perspective and certainly a very diverse perspective. As Lucinda had mentioned before, we had, in preparation for the webinar, we put together a few questions that we're going to pose to our panelists in an effort to share their insight as it relates to different issues and concerns and even opportunities that are happening as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And what we'd like to do is, again, give them the opportunity to share their insight, and then we'll open it up to questions towards the end. So the first question, and in no particular order from the respondents, but the COVID-19 pandemic has rocked the hospitality industry. I think that's something that we all know and certainly can understand and can embrace. With things like government-mandated shutdowns and travel restrictions, they've led organizations to make difficult decisions, including furloughs and layoffs. What specific challenges have you seen in your respective areas? So what challenges have you seen related to the COVID-19 pandemic? Who'd like to go first? It's like being in class all over again, right?
I can start and just give you a bit of what's been happening in the Hudson Valley. So we actually shut down for 2 months. We felt that there was no point really for us to stay open, being so new, and being that we were considered more of a luxury hotel. So we shut down from March 15th to May 15th. We were able to keep all of our employees on full pay, which was amazing. But really, it did start to come back with guest travel. Slowly but surely, it's getting there. But really, what's at our core for sales is groups, more corporate groups, and because we're considered a luxury hotel, they've really stayed away from that. So corporate just really isn't moving for us. They're sticking to more virtual and Zoom calls, conferences. So that's definitely hurt us coming from that perspective of revenue.
David, I'll jump in. I went from traveling nonstop around the world, like for the last 4.5 years, to February, the brakes hit, and haven't been on a plane since. The industry is sort of decimated. A lot of friends, colleagues are out of work. Hotels in New York City have been running anywhere from 15 to 22%. Last I checked, Star Research. So I think you got to kind of like call it what it is. It's been terrible. It's been really, really terrible.
I can add to that as well, David. I mean, for us, we stayed open. I volunteered, of course, and then really it was just myself and my sous chef doing takeouts and curbside delivery, and we watched that business grow significantly over the course of I think it was 3 months or so. But the big thing that happened here is it really made us appreciate the folks that weren't here, the folks that were furloughed. And so when they came back, we saw a real increase in teamwork. And, business is business. We were able to keep the hotel open with, say 20 to 30 rooms a night, 20 to 30% of our occupancy with local vendors, construction companies, things that were still happening in town. We were really the only thing open in a lot of ways. So it forced us closer together as a family. And now just the increase in productivity and teamwork it's unlike anything I've seen in 40 years. So we really, we met the challenge. We stayed open. We were all tired, but a lot of key relationships have formed. And, the title of our talk today is Using Your Hospitality Savvy. And isn't that really about, our relationships and the warmth that we create to welcome others in? Well, a lot of times, we don't do that with each other because we're busy and we're focused. We've got a narrow focus. So this here at Hart Hotels, it's caused us to really widen our focus to include each other in the hospitality that we offer to our guests.
And to echo the sentiment, I think we can all agree it's kind of sucked. We've had 3 primary challenges, I think. And the first is from the staffing perspective, we had to kind of know when to call it quits. And, for us, we were brand new first year. A lot of these team members started with us and they were like family. So having to make the decision to say, you have to go was horrendous. And, it was terrible. But we knew we needed to keep the hotel alive for them to come back to. And then the second piece is guidance. We've been getting federal guidance from CDC, we've been getting state guidance, and then we've been getting county municipal guidance. And it's been coming from all different angles on how you reopen, how you operate, how you function as a property. And then looking forward and forecasting, our whole industry is built on forecasting and being able to look forward. And, I think in such an uncertain time, there is no clear cut path. So we're seeing that the forecasting for our industry is just, it's fogged. We can't see a thing. So being able to make those decisions, I don't think anyone could have thought it was going to go on this long. Everyone thought we were going to be open by summer, and we'll open tail end. And now we're looking at all of 2020 just being wiped. So that's really posed the biggest challenges for us.
I think you mentioned a really good point, Subi, in that the uncertainty of it all is what is really unsettling to most folks, whether it be individually or from an organizational perspective. So I think that that's certainly led to more challenges than opportunities. But to try to kind of channel the that silver lining that Len was talking about, some organizations are experiencing some opportunities to redefine themselves and reinvent themselves, and even individuals. And I like to think that many of the folks who are on the call today might be finding themselves in that same position. So like I said, some organizations are experiencing opportunities for unexpected growth and success. Do any of you have some examples of where you might see that? Again, I know, Len, you shared a really positive one, a really good one. But do any of you have examples that you could share in those areas?
Well, I know it's out within the training division with Forbes, for instance, we've discovered the joys of Zoom and virtual training, and it's actually taken off. It's pretty amazing, which is kind of good to see. So I think this is probably my third really bad economic downturn in 30 years, and I've seen a few really bad ones, but this is horrible. You kind of dig deep and you think, all right, I can sit here and do nothing and wait, or I can sort of create. And so that's what my organization has done. And we went from 30 full-time trainers down to 3 or now 4, right? So it's tough, but you got to keep the company going and find it within yourself to do what's next, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even from the higher education standpoint, we're doing things to right size and to keep us moving forward, essentially.
Yeah.
So, I think from the silver lining for being such a new property, we've had the first month, 3 to 4 weeks were really tough in dropping of occupancy and all of our base business and everything out the window. But we really lucked out in our area because early on I made a contact with the National Guard, and we were just using them and they were using us for drill weekends. So we would pick up 4 or 5 rooms a month, maybe, if there was a drill weekend. And they were passed up by a lot of local hotels because no one wanted to give them the government rate, and then during the weekends of the summer. And we continued the relationship all up until this happened. And 3-4 weeks in, we started getting inquiries for, hey, the Guard is mobilizing. Can we put a few units at the hotel? And then it turned into, 20 units and 10 rooms. And they said, well, now all the units can't be roomed together. Can we take 20 rooms at your hotel? And I said, yeah. And I said, I'll do you one better. I'll close my doors if you fill me up. So we locked our doors to the public, and we've had National Guard fill this up ever since. And it's been a real great opportunity to be able to have the occupancy numbers we've had when the markets are at 10-20% maybe.
That's great. Again, thinking creatively and completely outside of the box, something that others might have turned their nose at, are now really looking at these opportunities for their lifeblood to keep them alive.
Yeah.
with Mirbeau, what we actually did just as we started to open back up, because we knew we were going to have a lot of travelers, is really try and focus on our local community, and kind of reach from being so new. As you know, so Rhinebeck's a very small village. You can kind of be on the outskirts if you're the newbie in town. So we kind of use that with COVID to kind of get into the core group of Rhinebeck and do things for our community, and vice versa, to really kind of act as one and become a part of the tight knit group. So one positive.
Very nice. And I think, you know, one of the things that I've seen here locally in upstate New York is restaurants and so forth completely reinventing themselves. I have one of our very close friends, the Brooks family or group of friends. They've gone to a takeout and delivery model, which is not, again, takeout was something that was big to their business, but delivery was never part of their core functioning in the past. And they've embraced that, and they've truly seen some great success as a result of it. Again, sometimes change is hard, and I'm not certain that if the pandemic hadn't happened, that they would have gone in that direction. So again, sometimes we find ourselves on the other side of these challenges with business models that we may not have otherwise expected. So thank you all for sharing those ideas and some of the thoughts of the silver linings, because again, I think it's important for us to keep some of that positivity flowing, even though we've got some challenges at our doorstep here. The third question that we had is, I think, probably going to be most important for the panelists that we have, or for our participants that we have today. But of course, as we all know, a number of our hospitality alumni have been displaced or negatively affected as a result of our pandemic or the pandemic. What are some pearls of wisdom that you have for these folks that are on the call today? What do they have to do to pick themselves up, dust themselves off, maybe reinvent themselves, or at least get themselves back in the game if they've found themselves displaced? What would you share with them today?
I would say at this point, like, there is no job that you should not be willing to do at some point.
That's right.
I started my career out of Walt Disney World, and I was there 5 years, and now, of course, years later, I work with them, and there's 75,000 people that work in the Disney campus. And they, like I said, like 90% of the people have been furloughed, right? So a friend of mine is there, just said, well, I can't find anything, but I've got this kind of job at, I think it was like some deli counter somewhere in downtown Orlando. And he's like, I'm not sure I should take it. And I said, anything now that will pay the rent is a good thing, right? And that being said, though, take your hospitality skill and use that in whatever job you're doing, because this is a good story to tell 2 or 3 years from now. What did I do during this time period to get through it, reinvent myself, and keep my spirit high and where it should be, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I've already advised some people in this situation, and I tell them, find a need and fill it. So part of what we're all experiencing, both inside of our own organizations, if we're working, and folks that aren't working, is this word pivot, and it's almost overused now. So I apologize for using it, but it's being adaptable, as you said, to just try to think outside the box. And in terms of going and finding a job, I mean, if it happened to me tomorrow, I would have to go to the market differently. The traditional means of HR departments and resumes, right now, it's all about human connection. So to your point, if someone has a need down the street, that's a great place to start, as opposed to wondering or being choosy and things like that. And the other thing I'll mention too is that inside organizations, even for those of us that are currently working, it's about finding the need and then creating a proposal. Not waiting for, especially large corporations and companies, to come to you or to advertise an opening, but find that need, write a proposal, and fill the need and present yourself in ways that you never imagined. And I think that the results that folks could experience are beyond what they've ever imagined, and the results will be the same, and you get a whole new life doing something that never would have been possible.
I think a few colleagues and I were on the phone the other day, and we were talking about a hotel and how it's like it's like a tree, and all the departments are like branches, and all the leaves are like employees. And right now with the climate, a lot of organizations trim some branches, and they tried to cut departments and all these leaves just to make sure the tree would survive. But with that, all of these departments are cross utilized, right? So their bandwidth is being pulled, and organizations are just waiting for it to balance out in order for the ability to regrow. So getting in the door early and saying, this might not have been, a line level position that I wanted, but knowing that there's going to be growth and regrowth in departments and organizations because the industry is resilient. And I think Jim had mentioned this is the third downturn he had seen. And yet it's always come back full force. Yep.
Just to go off of that, when one door closes, another one opens, and kind of going with the silver lining is, you may not have a job that you are 100% satisfied with or think that's where you should be at the moment, but at the moment that hotel or that restaurant needs you in that position to help them get to where they need to be. So use that and know that you're being a team player to really to help them get back to where they should be.
That's right. And the other thing I wanted to say and add to that, Kaycee, is one thing we've all learned in this is the word resilience. So just when we think that we've got it a little bit figured out, we know what's going to happen, it changes. And I know that the skills that are developing, right around me, just in terms of being able to weather changes and think creatively, it's really caused us to be in a new place. So for those of you that really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, keep your eyes and ears open and take care of yourselves. I mean, you really invest in yourself and, apply the skills that you've learned in this situation to bring that as a value to yourself and to your next employer.
Absolutely. I think these are great points of information, and I think that they'll be inspirational to many of the people on the webinar. If, let's say, we have some folks who are participating today who are having some difficulty because, again, it's a challenge when you're furloughed or you've been laid off and you're home and you might be a little bit in some despair and so forth. What can you do, or what could one do, or what would you recommend someone do to take the first step? How do we take the first step? How do we get out of that funk that we might be in? And you might even be in that funk if you're still working. But ultimately, what are some of the things that you would do to motivate yourself or encourage others to motivate themselves?
I'll start. First and foremost, adult sons of Marine Corps sergeants don't meditate. We're like, no, I'm from upstate New York, and that's crap. I will say that I've learned something in the last 30 years is that actually each morning I sit quietly, gather my energy. It's not meditation, Kaycee. And I sort of, I kind of center myself and I decide to envision that day. And I can't underscore the importance of that because I think, David, to your point, is that you really can start to go into these bad places sometimes. And not that you should try to suppress that because I get it, people, and I get it. But maybe look at that and then sort of think, okay, I've been there and now I'm going to start going here instead and take that first step, as it were.
Excellent.
I'll be uncharacteristically short and just tell people, do something different.
I'll say make sure you get up and take a shower and get dressed that day.
There you go. That kind of thing. Yeah,
seriously.
Exactly.
Yeah, make your bed.
Yeah,
That's
just do it's the small things that get you started.
Yes.
And then go from there. Go outside and take a walk and think about things, and then bring back your resume, bring it out, see what you can do, and start sending it out and giving it to people that you actually know. That's going to be more helpful probably than just sending it off to any HR department. It's all about the connections and using your network, Delhi included.
Yes.
And that was what I was going to build on that really quickly, Kaycee, and say that, this is a network for those of you who are participating in the webinar. This is a great network of people for you to leverage, whether it be the Alumni Association or the individuals on the panel here. It's a great group of folks to stay connected with, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we're all in hospitality, so we love to talk. So use this as an opportunity to go talk to some of your friends that you might not have connected with in years. We've all worked at properties and met all these different types of people, and use this as an opportunity to call someone and just touch base. I'm sure it's been a long time.
Absolutely. And I think, again, with one of the things that we want to keep in mind as well is really focusing on progress, trying to do something every single day. And I was reading an article very early on in the pandemic, and many of us at the college are working remotely as well. And I was trying to personally sort of define what a day looked like for me. I had a very, very specific routine every single day when I went to work. And then going to work just down the hall from where I woke up is very different. And one of the things that they mentioned in there was, to Kaycee's point, getting up, taking a shower, shaving, putting on your uniform or whatever you would normally go to work in, it makes you feel normal, quote normal. And so I think that that's so critical.
Hey, David, I'll also say, I think the habit thing is important. The silver lining for me, and honestly, in this is that I had sold a book last fall and I had to write it. And so the silver lining is actually I had time to write a book in the last 5 months. And I will tell you, there are mornings where it's like, I can't do this. I'm out of ideas. And you sit there and you just type the first sentence, and then you type another one, and then you keep on going. And I submitted the manuscript 2 weeks ago. But it's one of those like, wow, I just wrote a book. And you think to yourself, I can't possibly do this. Who am I? And you know what? You actually can do this.
That's right.
It takes focus and commitment and tapping into your life force, which is your spirit, to say, I'm actually better than this. I'm going to make this happen. Right?
That's right.
Definitely.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of us have talked about returning to normal, but to Jim's point, return to better.
Yeah.
Great.
So we did receive a related question and from one of our participants, and it states, they're wondering if any of you are seeing mindfulness play a role in effective leadership in our industry today as a result of the pandemic.
Just wrote a book on it. Yes.
I thought you might like that one, Jim.
I do. I'll let you all jump in on this as well, but I think you have to be present. I do. I think you have to be present and think in terms of what's going on right now. And with people I'm coaching these days, I talk a lot about this. It's just, where are you in your process? And are you aware of yourself? More importantly, are you aware of those around you and what your actions and your spirit do to those around you? You can just as easily crash somebody as you can lift them up. So I think mindfulness is incredibly important.
Absolutely. I used to ask my staff when they arrived every day. I wouldn't ask them anything. I would just say, here's what we have going on today, and here's what you need to do. And now when they arrive, I'm thankful that they're in the building again. And I ask them how they're feeling. How are you feeling? And what are your goals today? And then my role has changed to just support them from the bottom up. My name is the last on the schedule now, because I view my role as being aware of how I'm feeling. Management begins with oneself, and then being aware of where they are, and then putting it together. And we've had a lot more success with that sort of a model.
Yeah, I think just being there for them, and they've been there for a lot of my staff has been there through this whole thing, and they haven't complained. They haven't said,
That's right.
I'm not coming in. I cannot believe how there they've been for us. And that really makes you look at the organization and say, how can we be there for them? And what can we do, even if it's just getting them extra masks for their family, right? And making sure everyone at home has something, or doing simple things around the hotel to make sure they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And kind of on the other side of that, I mean, you really kind of saw, not to bring any negativity in here, but you kind of saw what people, where their kind of their values aligned, and how they felt they were a part of the company. So maybe it was someone who had just started and they were so thankful that, they were still with us, that yes, maybe they're an esthetician and they can't do facials yet, but they're actually the screeners that are taking temperatures of every person walking through the front door and asking them their questions. And then there were those that, you thought they were going to be great for this situation of what happened. And, they decided to go in another direction, and that's fine. But that's all just about finding, what works for you in certain areas of your life and times in your life to figure out, what's going to be best at this time.
Hmm. And also, I think what you can do is reach out to people. I mean, some days I can reach out and say, "Hey, I'm feeling kind of low today." Other days, "How are you doing?" I work with the spa out west, and they're incredible, the entire group. But I actually called the spa director and said, "How's it been? Because I can't imagine you're open at the moment." And she said, "No." And thank you, because no one's actually called to ask individually, "How are you?" And I think
Mhm.
we can do a lot of real good about reaching out to friends and colleagues. 2 or 3 people takes you less than an hour, and just check in, right? And say, "How can I help you? What can I do for you?"
Absolutely. Our environment typically in kitchens, I'm writing a book called Mise en Piece, which is how to change the culture in any professional kitchen into one of dignity and respect, and away from the toxic lifestyle that has characterized what kitchens are run like. And for us to just see people helping each other and caring about how we feel is never really been a component. We've always been about getting the job done and getting 4 hours of sleep and coming back to do it. And it's to just watch people take care of each other it's been incredible. And that's what the future of hospitality is going to look like, as I mentioned earlier. And we're seeing it happen before our very eyes.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing too, and one of our participants, Scott Ficton, has mentioned that organizations are doing things, creative things, to keep people engaged and to do those sort of pulse checks to make sure that folks are still there and they're okay. And again, it keeps that sense of community. And I think especially in the hospitality industry, because we're such a social group of people, we like to talk, we like to engage and hang out and be part of a group of people. I think it's so critical for us to have those types of outlets and opportunities for people to stay connected. As a matter of fact, the hospitality faculty and I did a couple of virtual lunches. One of our go-to things on Friday afternoons at McDonald Hall is we would always go up for lunch for $5 Friday. And so we had virtual $5 Friday a couple of times during the course of the semester, which is, again, it's a great opportunity. Now, granted, you're eating on top of your keyboard, but it worked and people really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it was just a way for us to catch up and say, "Hey, how's your daughter doing?" Or, "Is your mom still doing okay? How did that surgery go?" All those types of things that we normally would have done in the copy room or passing in the hallway. And I think it's so important to all of your points to provide that same sense of connectedness to
Absolutely.
kind of weather this storm. So, well, thank you all very much for your insight on that. And again, I think these are some great points that our panelists can live by moving forward. The last of the formal questions that I have is, what next? What does the post-COVID-19 hospitality industry look like? What changes do you think we can anticipate, and what do you think our participants should be prepared for as they look to the future?
I think
Test question.
technically, I mean, listen, as an avid traveler, how you get on an airplane, how you check into a hotel, how you experience a spa, how you experience a restaurant, it is going to change completely. It's the old thing of like the housekeepers doing 14 credits per day and out the room is gone. It's going to be a very different process and touch points and all that goes with it. On the upside, I think technology will take its role as far as how we check in and certain things that can happen. They were already started, but I think the COVID thing has actually pushed this to happen faster. So I think there's some positivity around that. But as much as one can crystal ball in all of this, I think a lot of processes on a technical level are gonna change pretty dramatically because they have to.
I think that was interesting because that's exactly where, from the branding of hotels, you know, a lot of properties already began this contactless check-in and the reduction in labor cost and trying to build some profitability back by, you know, keying in these components. And now we're going to see a customer that is appreciating that process much more.
Yeah.
And, you know, the reduction in touch points, like Jim was saying, instead of maybe getting that daily room service, it could go to weekly or on demand, and keeping, you know, the touch points down is going to really change how the experience happens at a property, which I'm excited to see what creation these brands are able to really pull out.
Could help a little bit more from a going green perspective if you're kind of
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's true.
good one.
That's a big thing here. So we're kind of using that idea of less touch points to kind of go in more of the more green direction. So.
I think a lot of the lack of touch points was really associated with the millennial travelers, but I think given the state of the environment right now, again, I think multi-generations are embracing it. So I think that's helpful in selling it, if you will, to your business.
Yeah. We're also, just something I wanted to mention, I don't know if anyone else is seeing this in their respective areas, but with reservations, usually we are 30 to 45 days out in terms of bookings. Now we are like 3 days out. Or that day. We're seeing a lot of jumps over the weekend. So it's a Thursday night, and then the next day we have 10 bookings for the weekend, additional.
Yeah.
And another thing we've been seeing a lot of is, which we actually just had an internal discussion about, was people extending their stays. So they would book for a night, and then they'd come down the next morning and say, okay, we're going to stay for another 2 nights. Which has been interesting from a perspective of staffing, because you have your staffing from the housekeeping end and the spa end, really, and restaurant, to say that, okay, this is what we're going to be, this is our occupancy, but within 24 hours, it's changing, and it's changing enough that you'll need an extra person on, or an extra 2 people on. So I don't know if anyone else is seeing that, but I think it's just more from people extending their stay, is people trying to see if they feel comfortable. So coming for a night, seeing if they feel comfortable with, you know, wearing the masks and the cleanliness of the hotel. And then people saying, okay, I feel comfortable, let me maybe stay another night, and, you know, we'll do a full weekend. But I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that. I was just interested.
Yeah, absolutely. Last night, when I left here at whatever time, early in the evening for a chef, you know, I left and we had 16 reservations on the book, 16 people. When I came in, my sous chef told me that a party of 20 walked in, and we ended up doing 110 for dinner. So every day, so we're thrilled to have the business, and they did it well, good ticket time and everything. But so yeah, there's words like agility and flexibility. And right now we prep for 140 dinners every day, Monday night, Tuesday night. Yeah, it's all mine tonight. So because we don't know what's going to happen. So one thing I'm hearing in all of our conversation here is the word awareness of what's happening internally, what's awareness for us of what's happening in the community. We could have 2 restaurants, and Clayton's a very small village, almost about the size of Delhi on the water. And, you know, if 1 or 2 restaurants decide to close on a Monday night or change their hours, all those people are coming here. Or, you know, so it's just really caused some awareness in ways that we were just kind of going through the motions. So another silver lining, awareness.
Absolutely.
Also, well, and Len said earlier, like pivot. It's sort of what's going to be right now. I worked with the Point up in Saranac Lake and Ocean House in Rhode Island, and they're both saying they're filled for the rest of the summer as far as weekends. It's done. But to Kaycee's point also is that they're seeing shoulder dates fill up as well all of a sudden, because I think once people start to trust the process, it's like, and you might experience with staff going, oh my God, it's a mess. It's a mess. Cool. Let's do it, right? money's coming in. Rally.
Right, and if it happens in the other direction and it's slow, I'll kind of throw them a bone and say, you know what? If it's slow right now, is it okay to feel that way? And I say, yeah, it's fine. Get stocked up. Take your actual break today.
Definitely.
Yes.
Tim, what are you seeing in terms of, I mean, are you going to go back to traveling soon? Is there a Forbes, have they kind of released what their guidelines are?
We're actually doing a series of webinars on our guidelines and how, from a luxury standpoint, we're doing this. So we work a lot with like the 5-4-star hotels and spas and restaurants, and we're doing a lot of that right now. But also it's contingent upon the economics. I mean, in New York, LA are still very, very low when it comes to occupancy. I think the Beverly Hills Hotel is still running around 30%. Last time I spoke to Ed Mady out there, and it's just sort of, it is the reality, I think, until some sort of vaccine or some sort of semblance of normalcy returns. And that's, we've been very careful not to try to crystal ball it. But I remember like I was a VP of a hotel company at 9/11, and I remember going literally from like making lots of cash and doing high fives to hotels plummeted. I mean, almost overnight. And at that time, I think we laid off 30% of our corporate overhead, same in the fields. And it was pretty horrible for a number of months afterwards. And then slowly but surely came out of it. And I think that's my sort of guiding light, is that I think we're close to a vaccine. But until that happens, travelers are still a little hesitant. And especially the restaurant people just don't want to go to restaurants.
Right. We actually received a question in the Q&A box that I think is poignant, and I think it talks to some of the things that we've been discussing. But the question reads: are any of the panelists working with their teams to brainstorm on creative ways to get guests or customers back into their business? And if so, what are some of the creative strategies that you've come up with?
Yeah, we've been going, now that the National Guard is really leaving and they're starting to demilitarize. We are starting to reopen our doors, and we right now are 50% with military, and now we have an opportunity to really build off this base. So we're going back to all our corporate contracts that we had, and we're looking at groups that we knew were at other hotels in the market. And some of the hotels are still closed. The Landing, which is a casino property, they're not going to open until they know how to reopen casinos in New York State. So we're getting on the phone, and I have a quick call sheet saying, what are the 3 things we're doing to sanitize and make sure their stay is clean? And what is it that these hotels were doing for them that we can really bring the groups back? Because a lot of the drive traffic is coming back in full force, and in these tertiary markets, we're seeing the occupancy really start to spike on weekends and shoulders. So it's a good opportunity for us to try to get a foothold again and build base back up while our military base is still in house.
One of the groups that's always been, I won't say prevented, but one of the groups of folks that is typically had trouble making reservations here in the summer now have a great opportunity. And that's most of our folks. Subi, you mentioned the tertiary markets. As all of you know, the Canadian border closed, a few months ago. And that's huge for us, because if I walked out my door here, I could see the Canadian border. Canadian border is a quarter mile from our hotel. So when the border closed, we lost a lot of our Canadian friends coming over all summer. And these are some very well-heeled demographic crowds from Toronto and Ottawa and even Montreal. And so those folks just can't come to our property this year. So that's opened up a lot of rooms for, basically all of New York State, New England. A lot of people as well are doing staycations. They're not traveling to other states. They're not taking cruises, and certainly not getting on an airplane. They've come up here. So we've really kind of expanded the opportunity again. As much as I miss going over to Canada sometimes, it's been great for the hotel in some ways.
We decided to kind of, in order to get people, we're basically driving distant. Most of our guests are within driving distance. So we really focus on that 2-hour radius. So that's up through Albany down to the city, and Brooklyn over to Long Island, New Jersey, and it kind of does a full swing over to Connecticut. So we've really focused on kind of pushing those markets, and also doing a lot of having a lot of conversations with writers. So those newspaper articles or the online articles that are coming out, really trying to push like, hey, we're the Hudson Valley, come and see us, to Len's point about the staycation. That's kind of been our focus. And then with that, we did something that we called a return to Mirbeau, and it's $100 credit for every night that you stay over. So you pay $450 for the overnight, but you get a $100 credit to be used in spa, dining, or the boutique. So that's allowing us to kind of funnel some of that additional money into other departments that were like, as the spa isn't as busy as it normally would be, but that's allowing us to kind of funnel some money in there. So from a revenue standpoint, it's been helpful, and it gets people, to say, oh, I can stay over and I get $100 credit. It makes it a little bit sweeter.
Yeah, that's changed our perception too. We did something similar. We call it hotel bonds, and it's a similar structure, and it's really helped folks that have perceived our hotel as a special occasion, boutique, expensive place, and it's made it accessible for them. And I'm thrilled to see families enjoying the pool again, and because typically in higher income brackets, it's just not that way. So now, it's really expanded our community.
Great. These are all wonderful ideas, and it just shows the creativity that can be accrued when you put some great minds together and build one idea off the other. So that's wonderful. So I think those were the bulk of the questions that I had for you folks. But I'd certainly like to open it up to the participants to ask any questions that they may have. Participants, if at the very lower bottom bar of your screen, there's a Q&A function. Please feel free to click on that and type your question in, and we'll handle them in the order in which they're received. And I'll do my best to kind of blend some of them that are similar if they're similar as they come through. We do have one question that is in the chat box right now, and the question asks, when essentially, and I'm sort of paraphrasing this, but when do you perceive the hospitality industry to be back in full swing? What do you think? I know that Jim, you'd mentioned when there was a vaccine or when there's preventive measures. I think that's probably going to be the major guidepost. But what other factors do you see leading the industry and travelers to be more confident and to go out there and enjoy themselves once again?
Personally, I would say spring of 2021 into summer of 2021 is when you're going to see it come back full swing.
I would say that without mentioning a date, I mean, our weddings, we've had a lot of weddings cancel this summer, but next summer, we're not only fully booked and set to exceed what we had booked this summer, but people are booking weddings in March and April, and even on Thursdays and Mondays. Imagine getting married on a Monday, but that's all that's available. So people are booking that. So we're thrilled for that. But again, and I just realized this in the last few days, for our entire industry to experience full swing again, it's going to require full employment in many other sectors, many other industries. I mean, for us, because basically, when the unemployment rate is what it is, when that changes, that's when the demand for what we're offering will start to change.
Definitely. There is another question in the box, and it focuses on occupancy. And for those of you who are in the hotel side of the industry, are you seeing lower occupancy due to having to hold rooms in order to keep housekeepers safe? I think Subi, you had referenced that it may not necessarily be on the staffing side of things, but it was more on the guests side of things where they were having single occupancy rather than double occupancy. But are you making any decisions, any strategic decisions as it relates to staffing to ensure staff safety?
Yeah, the biggest things for us are the staff safety, because without that, the operation really cripples. And, you know, for us, we push guests, and I've personally been very surprised with the positive responses that we've gotten from guests and their willingness to work with our team. Anyone coming in the door, you know, as soon as we mention, you know, the masks and making sure, you know, they kind of stay within their room and away from the public spaces, I haven't gotten pushback from anyone. And, you know, making sure that they're not congregating in those public space areas, we've really limited a lot of the areas and where they can congregate. And you know, just working with the housekeepers, I had more rooms stripped and left for housekeepers in the past month than I think we've ever had. And people are pulling things and leaving tips and pulling garbage and making sure these housekeepers are also taken care of. And it's kind of like your faith in humanity is restored, you know? So
Yeah.
it's really
Well
nice
said.
to see.
Well said.
That's great. That's really great.
Just to give you guys an idea, we went from 19 housekeepers before this to 3.
Uh-huh.
So that was, it was quite the downfall, but we were able to rehire. But one of the things that we did do, to answer your question, we don't let rooms rebook. We usually do a 3-day waiting period. So as the guest checks out, nobody's allowed in that room for a full 24 to 48 hours. And then the housekeepers do go in after 24 to 48 hours to go in and clean it. But we try and give the room some time to kind of sanitize. And if there is any virus there or any germs, we like to, you know, at least let them die off on the main surfaces. So that's something that we've tried to kind of keep housekeepers safe.
Mhm. Good. You have another question in the chat box, and this pertains to let's see here, vendors and suppliers. With many hotels and restaurants being affected, have you noticed the vendors closing or shrinking their operations? I can think of one major player in the marketplace that's been impacted by that. But Len,
yes, absolutely. That's been kind of a point of pain for us, but it's been good because now when we run out of things, people actually are there for me. Usually it's, why didn't you order that, or did you forget? No, the vendors, if I place a 50 case order, I typically have 6 to 7 out of stocks, and we are now placing 100, 110 case orders, and it's just, particularly with one vendor, it's been really difficult. However, that opened up an opportunity for a relationship with our local vendor, who's a family-owned company, and boy, have they been there for us. And we've actually discovered some excellent products that I had no idea that they had. They were always perceived in our marketplace as a smaller player, really not a go-to, and the prices were high. Right now, they have 75% of our business, and we can actually tell our guests that we're buying, 75% of our food for them to enjoy from a local family-owned company. And that feels great for me because as you know by now, I'm that guy. So it's been, and the other vendor, I feel real compassion for the sales rep involved, because his life has changed and, it's improved our relationship. I don't think he's looked at the numbers quite yet, but he knows that his company just isn't able to supply us right now. And that'll change, that'll get better. But again, it's been another silver lining that I never anticipated, because I've been set in my ways about ordering for a long time, and so it's been a real point of growth.
Speaking to our SUNY Delhi education, we were always told to keep pars of inventory, and I've never been so thankful that I had a high par for all-purpose creamer for Ecolab.
Absolutely.
I had like 6 cases on the shelf, and they said, we're back ordered for 3 months. I said, keep it. I'm good. So
I actually have friends and neighbors that are, because of that par that we learned, I have friends and neighbors, neighboring restaurants that have come in to borrow things because they know that I've got 10 cases of everything.
There you go.
It's awesome.
Absolutely. So we got one more question in the question and answer box. And the question reads, while many of us have probably had positions eliminated until next year, who do you think is wanting to hire hospitality professionals in the meantime? Maybe this is focusing on both in and outside of the hospitality industry.
Hey, look, you can be really innovative right now. A close friend was an executive housekeeper for Four Seasons in Miami, and Miami has gone up and down, but right now it's down. And so he reinvented and said, I am the owner of a luxury cleaning business, and I'm trained by Four Seasons. And all of a sudden, he had two clients immediately. So he took two housekeepers from Four Seasons that were laid off and said, "Come with me." And they walked in perfectly uniformed, and this lady said, "Oh my God, it's amazing." She called her friend down the street, and he said, "I'm not even sure I'll need to go back to work because candidly, if this keeps on happening, I'm going to have my own business." And I'm like, "Good for
There you go.
So reinvent, right?
Definitely. That's a great story, great opportunity. And again, it's completely related, obviously. So that's wonderful.
Totally.
Leveraging experience and context in many cases. Very good. That was great. Any other thoughts on how folks can either reinvent themselves or find opportunities in obscure or maybe non-traditional places?
I mean, I think businesses can always use people that are good with people, that are warm-hearted, that work hard. And I mean, that's what hospitality folks do. You know, we're able to do it all. So if you plug and play us in almost any operation, you're going to see we succeed. So I would really, really push to look at opportunities where, you know, restaurants right now, they're all trying to rehire and bring people back because they're really trying to reopen. We have all outdoor dining and limited indoor dining in New York State opening up. So I have a bunch of restaurant owners who are friends, and they can't even find people to work for them. They're like, no one wants to come in, no one wants to work. So get out there.
Right. I think the old focus was marketing, being very savvy about marketing your skills and your experience, but people hire people. And to your point, Subi, the word warmth, connection, friendliness, emotional intelligence, go and market yourself as the wonderful person that you are. And people will be glad to include you in their business because you won't create HR issues.
It's true.
I would also just say that kind of think outside the box. So if you love hotels and you want to stick within the kind of hotel realm of things, maybe try a different department. Maybe they're not looking for servers as much right now, but they definitely are looking for housekeepers. And at the end of the day, even if you don't like it and you do it for a while, it's really just going to help build your resume and build kind of who you are and make you a little bit more well-rounded. So that when you do go back and you go for that position as executive spa director or whatever it may be, you at least have that housekeeping experience and something a little bit different that you normally wouldn't do. And COVID's kind of allowing us to take a step in a different direction to kind of come back and better us in the future.
Very good. Well, at this point, we're right at 12 o'clock, and I want to be mindful of not only our participants' time, but certainly our panelists' time today. Do we have any final questions that folks want to pose in the Q&A box? We'll give folks a second or two to think of those final questions. I have one, of course. Those of you who've had me in class know I've always got a question, right? What do you see as the value of LinkedIn right now in staying connected and being engaged with your fellow hospitality professionals and people who are in different industries? What should folks on the call, what should they be doing with their LinkedIn profile? Anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I got a love-hate with LinkedIn, by the way, because I now have 4,000 people on LinkedIn, and so it's like this, and now they wish you happy birthday, and but that being said, I think it can be an effective tool if you treat it as a tool. And so I think sometimes it's going through and liking things for whatever reason is kind of nonsense. But I do think if you focus on certain things, what you want to get out of it can be really powerful. And a friend of mine runs the Wife Hotel in Brooklyn, and through LinkedIn, he got an idea about having his hotel convert to virtual office space. And he was actually featured in Fast Company this morning. And sort of like, and that came directly from Peter out of LinkedIn, a conversation we had with somebody else in the Midwest who had done it. So I think there's value if it's focused, right?
I
think
agree.
social media
Yes.
can really take you down a rabbit hole if you're not careful.
Absolutely, Jim. I agree. And one advice I was going to give earlier for people is, yes, to exploit everything that's necessary, but LinkedIn is fantastic if it's focused. And the current trend is not just to post photos or articles, but actual video, and I know that, okay, it's 2020 and, everybody's a television star. Some folks are more inclined to that than others, but really focus on your content and focus on your connections. David mentioned earlier to reach out to your fellow Delhi alum. All of the alumni are there and available to you, and it's a starting point of connection. So, know what your goal is. I would say know what your goal is when you go out on LinkedIn, because to Jim's point, you can spend a lot of time linking and commenting and saying thank you. But if you really focus in on what your goal is, it's a very effective tool. And mine's been exploding recently. I don't know why, but it's time consuming to respond to everyone. So, I have other friends on LinkedIn. They say, well, I connect with everyone, and that's if you've got time to do that. But no, to Jim's point, what did you say? You have 5,000? It's just too many. 4,000. Yeah, 4,000 is hours of your day sometimes. So it is very effective, but learn how to use it. And when you set up a LinkedIn profile, the software, the algorithm, it's not a person. The software will guide you through the process of setting up your profile. Take the time to do that, because that's what really makes a difference. More is better. More detail is better on that, because when you see someone that has 10 connections and very little content, you kind of feel like they're not even looking at it. So it's a very good investment. I would say start with 15 minutes a day, and when it gets to maybe 45 minutes or an hour, it might be too much.
Just to go off of what Len had said, I know I have a friend who's in the recruiting business, and a lot of times for those who may be on the call or anyone who may not have a position right now, so underneath the name and the description of what you do, don't necessarily say, executive housekeeper or spa director, kind of state what you are. So a well-rounded person in focusing on hospitality, specifically in restaurants, and kind of explain a little bit more about who you are instead of just saying your position, because you're more than just a position. And when recruiters kind of get
That's
back
right.
out there to look, to see who they're looking for, that's what they want to see.
That's
So
right. That's the new outstanding are the soft
Right.
skills. The soft skills, that's the new outstanding in your field.
Really good points. Really good points. We did receive one additional question, and I think given the time frame, it'll probably have to be our last question for today. But the question reads, is it appropriate to ask for a promotion or a raise during these times? I was on a development plan pre-COVID, and now everything has been swept under the rug. What are your thoughts about asking for raises during this time?
I think it's situational. It's one of those, if I'm running a business and it's kind of hand to mouth, it's not a good time to ask me for more money. But I think it's situational. It would depend on where you work and what you're doing and everything else. I don't know many businesses right now, candidly, that have a lot of extra cash. I just don't.
Yeah,
I
think.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, as an operator actively, it's not the greatest time maybe to go to them and say, hey, what can you do for me? But I think you can use this as an opportunity to say, look, we can get through this time, and look at how much I've been able to contribute after this is over. And, with that, not asking for it now, it gives the employer an opportunity to say, wow, look at what this person has done for me. I need to do something for them, and let them try to figure it out. I know you don't want to probably wait around for those things, but, try to give your employer an opportunity to do something. go above and beyond for you.
Absolutely. I had an employee, I had an associate return from furlough just 2 hours ago. And the person asked me about this, I mean, immediately. And I just took it as an opportunity to rebuild the relationship and say in the affirmative and say, no, we've not swept it under the rug. Yes, we have all the dates for the reviews. And when we get some revenue, it was just another opportunity to rebuild the relationship. So
Yeah,
if I'm promoting open communications and open doors, I want people to tell me what their needs are.
Absolutely. Very good. Well, I think, like I said, that was the final question that we had. I just wanted to, before I turn it back over to the advancement office, I just wanted to thank all of the participants that we had today. I think we had a great showing of recent and not so recent graduates. It was wonderful to see the diversity of the folks who were participating in the call. And we certainly want to thank each and every one of our panelists, Len Mitchell, Jim McPartlin, Kaycee, Darby, and Modasra for participating today and helping us and sharing some pearls of wisdom as it relates to, again, finding that silver lining and making sure that we see our long-term success. For those of you who are on the call, it was great to see some wonderfully familiar names and some folks that bring us way back, some not so far, but again, we wish you all the best. And if we can help at SUNY Delhi at any time, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, we're on social media, we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and certainly by email or phone. Not quite ready for the in-person visits yet, but hopefully we'll get there very soon. So again, thank you all very much, and I'll turn it over to the advancement office at this point.
Thank you, David, and thank you all again for taking part today. We're really excited to see so many of you join us. This is what we hope will be the first of many more alumni webinars from SUNY Delhi to come, and we hope you can join us again. We hope you'll stay in touch with the Alumni Association. Please be well and best wishes to everyone. Thank you so much.